Hello, guys. You're welcome to the Footy Week podcast. My name is Adebari, and it's always a pleasure to be, on another episode of the Footy Week podcast. And today I'll basically be reflecting on, the historic Champions League night for Arsenal. In my own opinion, probably the most important night in the history of Arsenal at the Emirates Stadium. I think that's the most important game that ever took place at the Emirates Stadium, and Arsenal had a resounding 3 victory against the defending, reigning, record holding 15-time Champions League winners, the Los Blancos, talking about Real Madrid, being coached by the legendary Don Carlo. And I think Arsenal shocked everybody. They shocked the entire world. They shocked their fans as well, because I must say that me personally as a fan, I was genuinely shocked. Going into the game because of the record that Real Madrid possesses, and because everyone knows how dominant Real Madrid is in Champions League. I honestly do not have any hopes, considering the fact that there's no Kai Havertz. Odegaard has not been in the best of form. There were doubts regarding Saka possibly playing the game. And then to make things worse, the weekend just before Arsenal played Real Madrid, Arsenal, as far as I'm concerned, lost their best centre-back, someone who has been their best centre-back this season and possibly over the calendar year as well, talking about Gabriel Magalhaes. So, going into the game, there were no hopes for me as an Arsenal fan. I felt it was going to be a Real Madrid victory. Even if Arsenal were able to somehow, come away with a stalemate in the first leg being at the Emirates, I just felt that, the inevitable might happen at the Bernabeu. But what a match performance from Arsenal. I think kudos to Mikel Arteta for getting it tactically right. That's the first thing. And honestly, Real Madrid just looked very toothless. It just seemed to be that Real Madrid could not just compete with the level of the game at which Arsenal were playing at. The intensity of the game seemed to be a lot for Real Madrid. And honestly, as far as I'm concerned, it just seemed to be like it was only Jude Bellingham and Eduardo Camavinga who were trying to make things happen for Real Madrid. It seemed like they were the only two that really, really wanted it at the end of the day. And speaking of the latter, Camavinga is now going to be suspended for the second leg against Arsenal, which obviously then makes things more difficult for Madrid. Yes, people will say Tchouaméni is coming back, but Tchouaméni and Camavinga are not the same player, and it's going to be difficult for Real Madrid to actually stage a comeback. But talking about that first leg in particular, obviously the major talking points have to be those two outstanding free kicks from Declan Rice, who in 313 matches for both West Ham, Arsenal, and England in total, he had never scored a direct free kick, but then he was able to score a direct free kick in that legendary game. The first free kick was crazy, bent round the wall, and then you just think to yourself, how many players in today's game are capable of bending the ball around the world? For me as an individual, when I see free kicks like that, the first person that comes to mind is Roberto Carlos. And then you think about people like Ronaldinho as well, Deco, set piece specialists to be precise. For me, that first free kick hit like crack. It was absolutely amazing. And then going into the second one, the second free kick, I think first of all, obviously, Declan Rice said it himself post-match conference. He said the confidence from taking the first one was with him. And this is a skill set that he has always had in his locker. So it was just, it was just a matter of time till it eventually came out. Because I also remember Mikel Merino post-match, also said that he wasn't surprised with the quality of the free kick, and him and Declan Rice taking the free kick in that good quality, that they see it a lot in training, and obviously it was just a matter of time. And with that second free kick, which is a favorite to a lot of people, Declan Rice showed a lot of quality, picking out the top corner, and arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the last decade, Thibaut Courtois, could not do anything about it. Mind you, Thibaut Courtois had a decent game against Arsenal, in my opinion. He made things difficult for Arsenal before, they finally scored one goal, and then he just kept going and going for Arsenal. So at the end of the day, you need to give kudos to Arsenal. No Kai Havertz, no Gabriel Jesus, no Gabriel Magalhaes, who I said earlier was their best defender, and they were still able to maintain, a high quality level of game. And for Bukayo Saka, who had not played 90 minutes of football in over 4 months, who still didn't play 90 minutes against Real Madrid, he had a very decent performance. He had a very decent 1 hour and a couple of minutes against David Alaba, and it was quite clear that David Alaba was struggling against him. So, but then again, I think coming back to Declan Rice, I think he has proven that he's worth every penny that Arsenal signed him for. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the transfer fee at that time was stable to be £120 million, with Arsenal paying, in installments. And at this point in time, I think Arsenal should probably, decide to pay more in installments, because he's absolutely worth it. For someone who already established himself as a world-class defensive midfielder, while playing with West Ham. And then at Arsenal, he has shown that he can play as a box-to-box midfielder. And then he has also shown that he's a great set-piece specialist, taking corners for Arsenal and now also taking free kicks as well. Yes, I mentioned West Ham earlier, and the transfer fee. And I do think that probably West Ham deserve more money for Declan Rice because of the value he has brought to Arsenal in terms of elevating their game and just being a leader on the pitch as well, because you see that from his body language, you see the way he communicates with his fellow teammates as well. I think the jokes on West Ham fans who always said that, Declan Rice's best performance in Europe was the Conference League final 2 seasons ago, but I think he just gave a more outstanding performance, probably one of the most historic performances in the history of world football, to be honest, because when you're talking about the history of the Champions League, certain situations come to your mind, certain games come to mind, certain players come to mind, and I think that Declan Rice has put himself in that conversation because the whole world was absolutely just talking about it. Those two free kicks once again were absolutely amazing. And then Mikel Merino, who has also stepped into the position of a striker since the injury layoff to Kai Havertz, he scored the third goal, and the third goal was absolutely amazing. But once again, to touch on Declan Rice and his value, he did get a lot of criticism after joining Arsenal. A lot of people were clamoring for more goals from him, and then this season alone, he has been able to respond with 6 goals so far and counting for a defensive midfielder or box-to-box midfielder. That is quite good when you consider the fact that midfielders are not actually tasked with scoring goals. And then I think Declan Rice had probably given a bit more ginger to those who are always on his side whenever there are comparisons against the likes of Felipe Caicedo of Chelsea and even Rodri of Manchester City. A lot of professionals, for example, someone like Alexander Zinchenko has said, this is someone who has had the benefit of playing with both Rodri and Declan Rice, and has said, for him, it's Declan Rice. And Declan Rice is simply just proving his worth, doing big things on the biggest stage. But the first leg is done and dusted. Moving on to the second leg at the Bernabeu, Arsenal will be going there. And, the ultras at Real Madrid have said that they're going to, have like a special welcoming for the Arsenal faithful. But I think Arsenal should just go with the same mentality, the same approach to the game, wanting to play good football, not parking the bus. And I think with the quality they have, they will definitely be able to get a positive result out of the game, irrespective of the fact that Real Madrid are playing at home and they have the home advantage. I still think Arsenal's quality is good enough for them to get a victory. I do not see a comeback victory for Real Madrid in this case. I don't think Kylian Mbappe, Rodrigo, Jude Bellingham, and Vinicius have what it takes to actually pull that off, in my own opinion. This Real Madrid side is quite different from the one that was, being led by the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, Karim Benzema, Gareth Bale, and Sergio Ramos at the back. So it's a different ball game right now for Madrid. I know things went from bad to worse for them over the weekend. Kylian Mbappe getting a red card in the game for Real Madrid. So things are not really looking good for them. And I think Arsenal have a good chance going into Spain and playing against Real Madrid. I think I'll be confident enough to go with I think it's going to be a draw. Either it's going to be a 0-0 victory, or either it's going to be a 0-0 draw or a 1-1 draw for in the game, basically between Real Madrid and Arsenal for the second leg, and then we'll see Arsenal qualify for the semi-final round of the Champions League. Maybe to face PSG. Who knows? Stay tuned for the match reaction video of the second leg on Footy Week podcast.